Hold on one second. I'm just, go ahead. I just wanted to let everybody know that because of the public meeting law, I'm recording the meeting.
Right.
So I've started the recording there, and that'll be shareable with the community.
Wonderful. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our August meeting on August 11th. And wow, I can't believe the month of August is already a third of the way through. So welcome. And today we have a really fun schedule. We're going to hear from Janet from Viva Village and in just a few minutes. And do we have any community members here, visitors?
Hi, this is Jing. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can, Jing.
Okay, great. Great. Initially, I was set up as a guest, so it was muted somehow.
Oh.
Now, yeah.
Now you're here.
Figure out. Okay, good. Thank you.
So no visitors, and let's do approval of our minutes. We'll just move along and have extra time for other things. So who would like to, any additions or additions, edits?
This is a total.
Go ahead, Lou.
Oh, it's obviously this is a nitpick, but just the next meeting date says August 19th, and obviously it's August 12th, so just a little minor.
Okay,
fix
got
there.
it.
And
that would be August 11th.
August 11th, I mean. Sorry, John.
Well, we are August 11th, right? Today?
Right, yeah. I guess I was looking forward to the next day already. And then just, I don't know if this is a question or a correction, but about the 5x8 ageism card, I think it was somebody from Washington County.
It was Kara.
Did that get sent out? I don't remember seeing that. They were going to send it out for us to take a look at.
I don't remember it either.
I didn't get it.
I didn't either.
So I don't know if somebody could, I don't know, is that something we could check? I think they said they would do that, right?
I believe they did. That was my understanding, Lou, was that we were going to be able to look at that card in more depth.
Yeah.
And what was it called again?
It was that 5x8 ageism card. They wanted to do like a little brochure to drop off. It's in the minutes under the Washington County.
Right.
Educational. It's number 2. Shared a prospective 5x8 educational card to be distributed around the community. Members liked it and asked to review it on their own more carefully.
Okay.
Yeah. So we haven't seen it. Looks like to review yet.
And maybe for some reason they can't review it, but we just didn't know that they couldn't, or there's some, we just didn't get a follow through. So good job, Lou.
Yeah. So the obvious step would be to ask them to send it out, or ask when they would be sending it out. Who would do that, or who would be?
Well, I'm going to see Kara on Friday, so I will chat with
Martha.
her.
Okay, Martha, you're following it up. Good.
Thanks, Martha. Other than that looked fine to me.
Any other edits for the minutes? I didn't have any. So approval of minutes. Who would like to, I don't know all the rules, so I don't even know what the language is. So who would like to help me out, guys?
I move that they be approved.
Thank you.
I second.
Perfect.
Thank you, Suzanne and Lou.
And Hilary, thank you for being our scribe.
Sure.
Perfect. So now we're going to move into committee check-ins. Any updates? Our resource panel subcommittee is going to add a lot later in the meeting. But are there any other updates? I know our prom is probably not going to happen this year.
Mm-hmm.
So moving right along. So I would like to warmly introduce to you all Janet from Viva Village. And I only know Janet from attending a Viva Village council meeting. And I recognized her smiling face, and I'm really looking forward to hearing what she has to share about Viva Village. So welcome, Janet.
Well, thank you for
the invitation. Those of us involved with Viva Village are always looking for opportunities to tell our story and to get our message out to people who are familiar with working with seniors in Beaverton. So I think you seem like a perfect audience for our story. With Suzanne sitting right here looking at me, Suzanne has been
looking
involved
at
in the
you.
village for a long time. So hopefully you can add whatever you think I'm leaving out. When I talked to Martha about today, she's thought that perhaps some of you are not familiar with the village concept at all, and others of you, like Suzanne, have been very much involved. So I want to start with kind of an overview of what the village is, and then address specifically how we have struggled, and that's a good word, to meet the challenges of the current situation for seniors.
Janet, sorry, real quick, I have a question. Are you a volunteer with Viva Village? Are you part of the office?
What do I do? Well, everyone at Viva Village, except for a part-time program director, is a volunteer. So I'm a volunteer, and I've been working with the village since before it launched in October of 2016. And currently, well, before the lockdown, I was really busy because I was events coordinator. I suppose you would say I still am, but events have changed. And I serve on the governing council.
So which branch are you with primarily? Isn't it section?
It is, but Viva Village is Beaverton. And so there are 11 villages that are up and operating in the Portland metro area. There's one in Hillsborough, there's one in Raleigh Hills area. There's quite a few on the east side, but Beaverton is Viva Village.
Thank you.
Excuse me. Well, the whole village, I like to say the biggest misconception when people hear about Viva Village is they think it's a brick and mortar residence area for 55 plus. And it's not, it's a virtual village. There is no, people are living in their own homes. So I like to think of it as a virtual retirement village where instead of paying rent or an HOA or a mortgage, you pay dues because it's a membership organization. We have membership assistance, so not everyone who belongs is able to pay the full fee, but it is a membership organization. It started in Boston in the Beacon Hill area in 2001, so it's a relatively new concept. And it was started by a group of people and neighbors in that area that aged and realized that maintaining their homes was increasingly difficult. And therefore they needed to find some way to provide support for themselves, especially in the winters in Boston, cleaning out gutters, shoveling walks, keeping their homes safe and a place where it was safe for them to live. So they organized the first village, which was neighbors helping neighbors age in place. And it took off. There are now 200 villages nationwide in all states, and it's a concept that is constantly growing. It started here in the Portland metro area in 2011 with Ann Adler, who moved up here from San Francisco. And when she got here, she realized that there was nothing. She expected to move right into a village and there was nothing. I never have had the privilege of knowing her, but she seems to have been quite an assertive, competent person because she immediately got one started on the east side. And as has happened nationwide, as people realized what a great idea it was, it spread throughout the Portland area. And there are now 11 open villages here. The one in Beaverton was started by Ray Coleman. I think she's known to many of you. She's a very active person here in Beaverton in Elsie Stir and other organizations. And she got started with first organizational meetings in 2011. And it took a long time to get it started. I think Suzanne was probably involved in some of those early meetings. but we finally launched in October of 2016. We currently have 102 members and 88 volunteers. Since it's a completely volunteer-run organization, it's extremely important to have that ratio between members and volunteers to be good. Many of our volunteers are also members, but we count them separately. The organization is run by the Governing Council, which is made up of 6 to 8 volunteers. We have one part-time program coordinator, and we have an office on Griffin Park where we.
Janet, somebody needs to mute. Whoever that was. Thank you. Okay. Come on.
And the Governing Council meets to coordinate services, events, the business part of the organization, fundraising, all the things that go into running an organization. Why does someone choose to become a member? It doesn't take the place of moving into assisted living if that's what you need and want, but it prolongs the need to make that decision because we provide a social outlet for people, which is, it all seems to start when people can no longer drive and their lives become so very different. And when you can no longer drive, you can no longer run errands, you no longer are independent about going to appointments, you are no longer able to socialize in the same ways. So Viva Village provides services and events in ways that make up for that loss. Many of our members still drive, but it kind of is connected. We started out thinking that we would be primarily a service organization, that we'd be doing transportation, maintenance work on taking care of people's gardens. And indeed, we do a lot of that. But we found that the greatest need was social. People are very isolated, and that's one of the reasons they reluctantly choose to move to assisted living, is so they will have a social life and have people and activities to engage. So we, at the time of in March 16th was our last event. I was planning 26 events a month. And we offered those to our members and they were very well attended. They ran the gamut of very social kinds of activities, field trips, going out to lunch, going to dinner, life stories, parties, picnics, all kinds of social events. We had a list of probably 10 interest groups ranging from history to painting, cooking, travel, arts and crafts, history, book clubs, all kinds of interest groups. And then we also organized information things like the Village Forum, Aging with Grace. So it was a wide variety and a very busy schedule for people to engage in our activities. And through those activities, friendships and relationships were established that went beyond Viva Village events, which was the whole point. The second greatest thing we offer are the services, and probably first among those is transportation. Our volunteer drivers will take you anywhere you want to go at any hour between 6 in the morning to 10 at night, as long as it's within the Portland metropolitan area. With the exception of the airport and Sunnyside, some of the Kaiser medical facilities are quite a distance away. We encourage people to ask for transportation within a 10-mile radius of their home. But we're flexible on that. And that's used a lot by our members and very much appreciated. Primarily, the biggest demand is to medical appointments. And we're happy to do that for people and accompany them. We also do home maintenance projects, and we do a lot of gardening. We do technology, which was in a lot of demand. We do health buddies where you accompany people to the doctor and kind of help them be an extra set of eyes and ears, because many of our members do not have family living in the Portland area. Their children live out of state. And so they especially appreciate having that extra support. We also have activity buddies where people will want a walking companion to hike with them, someone to help them work on special projects. We have one gentleman who's unable to go out much anymore, but loves to have people come and visit him. So a lot of different kinds of activities. And then we also have a list of vendors that we share with our members that we have vetted, and that especially women who are not particularly accustomed to taking care of a home, when there's something breaks, they are targets for being abused by vendors. One would like to think that's not the case, but there are lots of examples where it happens. So we either send a volunteer to fix it if we can, and if we can't, we recommend people who have vendors, commercial or professional vendors, and oftentimes one of our volunteers will be present so that the whole thing is supervised by someone who might have a little more knowledge about what needs to be done. Well, that was going very well. And then March came along, and I mean, like all of you know, everything was locked down. We didn't know what the situation was. All of us, really all of our volunteers and certainly all of our members fall in the high risk category in terms of for our age. So we were fearful and continue to be so, although perhaps we've become a little more comfortable with how to deal safely with the restrictions. The first thing we did, well, we stopped everything, absolutely everything. We locked up the office. We all went home and learned how to use Zoom. That was our first challenge. But we also gave new impetus to a program that was already in place called Neighborhood Connections. And prior to the pandemic, this program was in place, thank goodness, because it was easy to activate it. And Neighborhood Connections means that every member has a volunteer. We call them connectors because their role is to connect the member to the village, but they're like buddies or partners. And they're assigned someone living in their neighborhood or zip code who has been in regular contact with them. So immediately we had all of our connectors connect to the membership to make sure they had what they needed. Were they going to need to have someone buy their groceries for them? Did they have neighbors that would be checking on them? And we've made those phone calls on a weekly basis ever since. So all of our members are being checked on. And because it's divided up by neighborhood, many of us are able to walk to that person's house, stand in the driveway and have a conversation and make sure they're okay. That doesn't happen in all cases. It's not necessary in many cases. And every situation and relationship is different. So we started with reactivating neighborhood connections just to make sure everyone was safe and had what they needed and knew how to call the village if they had an emergency. Then we started running errands, and that was picking up prescriptions for people. We delivered masks to people, all in the driveways. Nobody's been in anybody's house in 6 months, but in the driveway, handing out masks to people, running errands, picking up groceries, all of that kind of shuttling back and forth, because many of our drivers were more than willing to do that. They felt that it was something they could do. And quite frankly, our volunteers are looking for things to do because this is a time of little activity for most of us. Once Beaverton went to phase 1, then we added our ability to drive people to medical appointments. There was a little bit of trepidation about that because you certainly aren't social distancing in a car. But once the doctor's offices opened up again, we did begin to take and have continued to take people to their doctor's appointments and provide transportation. They have to wear their masks, sit in the back seat, keep the windows open. There's a whole list of guidelines, but we've been doing a lot of that. And as you also recall, all of this happened in the spring. So we provided gardening service to our seniors who wanted to put in gardens plant vegetables, prune, rake, clean up their gardens. And we had a lot of requests for that sort of thing. And we also started encouraging patio visits where people would sit on a deck or patio, 2 or 3 people at a time, and just connect, because not all of our members are comfortable with Zoom. And even if you are, it doesn't take the place of a conversation face to face. So we've been trying to encourage that. We've also are starting next week, actually, a bookmobile and puzzles, because lots of us have been doing jigsaw puzzles like the rest of the world. So we have collected quite a few bins of puzzles and jigsaws, puzzles and books, and we're going to be driving those through the neighborhoods. Well, the bookmobile goes out once a week, but every neighborhood, it will be twice a month, where people sign up and we'll take books, and they open up our trunk of our car and they can take what they want and give back whatever they might have borrowed in the past. And we've started Village Partners, which is, and we'll probably continue with this whenever this situation comes to an end, which we certainly hope is sooner rather than later. Village Partners, we've realized when people are in a particular situation of need, it's hard to be calling the village every day to ask for something and someone different would respond. So what we're doing now is assigning a partner to people who are in a situation of special need. And that would be one volunteer who would do, to their ability, all of the needs. An example, we've had 2 people who are taking advantage of this right now. One is a person who has macular degeneration. And during the years that she's been part of the village, this has progressed. And she's in a situation right now, especially with the pandemic, where neighbors and friends who used to help her don't feel comfortable doing the same. We're going to assign someone to work with her on a regular basis to read her mail, help her pay her bills, take walks with her so she can be out safely on the street. So it'll be a partner that will work specifically with her, at least through the pandemic, when she doesn't have access to her other sources of support. And another woman, we're providing meals for her, running errands for her because she's had some health issues. So each situation is always very different, but assigning one person to work with one member in this kind of intense way has grown out of this difficult situation we're in. And then, like every other, like you folks and like everyone else, we've learned to use Zoom. And, you know, I sort of feel like Zoom is our hammer and we're trying to make everything we've ever done in our life a nail. Not everything lends itself to Zoom, but many things do. And we've been having, we started with the women's coffee, which is really very well attended, and in part because this was a group that met anyway. They just can now meet and talk and exchange and converse on Zoom, and they meet once a week. Our book club is meeting on Zoom. The Age Cafe, which has been organized in collaboration with the library and DAVS in Washington County, that meets every Friday. And that's kind of like a women's coffee. It's got a focused topic of discussion, but been well attended. We're starting Tai Chi classes on Zoom. Hope nobody gets hurt doing that in their homes. Everything is new. And we have an art class, which is fun. It's the same woman that was teaching or leading the art group prior to the pandemic. She started doing it on Zoom, and she'll tell us what to do. And we sit there and do whatever it is, and then we do show and tell, and everybody shows what they've done, and it's fun. You know, this is the kind of use of Zoom that I personally think is good, because you're interacting, you're doing something that is real and meaningful. You're not being entertained, which I have my doubts. There's so much good entertainment on the internet. We also are going to do travel talks where people will share slides and talk about trips they've taken, and we'll dream about being able to do it again. And then we're trying this month a virtual field trip to a beekeeper through Zoom. We'll see how that goes. Yeah, we'll see. We keep trying. If it works, we do it again. If it doesn't, well, that was a mistake. So that's where we are. This has been a challenge. I'm sure it is for every single group. It's not just us. Our first priority is to keep people, our members, safe, to meet the needs we can, and to be in enough connection and awareness. If they do get in trouble, we're there to help them because they're all in a vulnerable situation. I'm quite pleased, in fact, this is probably true for you as well, that none of our members have gotten COVID. I think in part that's because they're all staying home and they live in their own homes. They're not subjected to some of the scary stuff. But we've had several who've had serious falls, out doing a lot more walking because they can't be at LC Stir, which is a safe recreational environment. A lot more walking on the sidewalks in the streets and people falling. We've had some other health issues too for our members that are all just more complicated because of, you know, you can't visit them if they're in rehab. You can't, I mean, you all know, I don't need to tell you that. So we're trying to keep everyone connected, healthy, safe, and moving forward when it seems like time is standing still.
Yeah.
So anyway, Suzanne, I don't know if you want to add anything. That's pretty much who we are and what we're doing.
No, Janet, you did a wonderful job. Wonderful.
Thank you.
So any questions for Janet?
No, I
Janet, what,
to add that we've got a couple of friends that are using your services quite nicely, so it's very well needed.
Well, good. That's good to hear. We've been really challenged. I mean, at the beginning, we thought, oh, well, we thought like everyone else, couple weeks, 15 days to, what was that? 15 days to level it off. Here we are 6 months later.
It could have been that way.
Yeah.
I have a question. I have, this is great information and I just love it. Can you give me some idea, number one, about just kind of the makeup of your volunteers? Are they, you said that some of them are members. Are many of them middle-aged people, younger people?
Well, we have very few younger people.
Okay.
Primarily because younger people are working and most of our volunteer needs are during the day.
Yeah.
Once in a while, there's something on a weekend, but it's mostly during the day. So most of our volunteers are people who are recently retired. Okay. And they're looking for meaningful things to do. And they find it in Viva Village. Another thing that's attractive to our volunteers is that you don't have a specific schedule. So when someone makes a request for a service, you can, I mean, it all works on, there's this fancy computer program called Club Express that sorts it all out. But let's say I am a driver. I'll get a request that somebody needs to go to the doctor Friday morning. I look at my calendar and if I'm free to do it, I'll write back and say, sure, I'll take her to the doctor. If I've got something else I want to do that morning, I just don't respond. Mm-hmm. And so it gives volunteers the ability to be engaged, but not committed to a time schedule that prevents them from feeling free to travel or have other plans, or if you have house guests or, you know, whatever reason. So that's attractive to our volunteers. And then many of our volunteers become members because they think, you know what, I could use some help with technology. I could have somebody clean my gutters. I could have somebody help me trim these bushes. So many of our volunteers then join.
Lou?
yeah, Janet, that, by the way, that was an amazing presentation. It was really impactful to me. So I had a couple of questions. What is the cost for either a single person or a married couple to belong to Viva Village?
I should have that right at my fingers. For a single person, it's $540 a year, and that comes out to about $45 a month. And that's the full membership with no limit to the number of services that you can request. It's, I think, another $250, something like that, if there's a spouse or a second person living in the home. there's a pretty big reduction because it's one home, although it's two people that could require transportation. Then we have a membership called the associate membership. And that's one that many of our volunteers and people choose because it's a way of supporting the village. And that's $300 a year, 200 of which are considered tax deductible as a donation in support of the village. And an associate member can attend all of the events. They can, you know, all of our 25 events that were every month, and now it's Zoom, but you have access to all the events, and you have 2 services a year that you can use. I'm an associate member, and I used my 2 services last year. One, to have a garbage disposal installed for, and which would have cost me probably more than $300 to get done by a professional. And 2, my cupboards in my kitchen started to come off the wall. And I called this man who had installed my garbage disposal and said, help, I think, and he came over and stabilized it for me until I could get a cabinet maker to come in and fix it. So my 2 services were well used. But an associate membership also includes insurance. So let's say as an associate member, I don't even want to wish anything on myself, but I need surgery of some sort. I can upgrade my membership to full service for 1 month at no extra cost. Actually, we just changed that to 6 weeks because usually rehab is 6 weeks. So we decided, you know, a month doesn't really do it. So 6 weeks, and after 6 weeks, if I still need full service, then I'm expected to upgrade my membership. So the associate service has that kind of insurance included.
I've got 2 more quick questions. What's the criteria to be either a full or associate member?
Your choice.
No, what's the criteria? I mean, how is there an age, income? Is there any kind of requirements, residential requirements to be a village member?
To be full service, we visit your home. Well, actually, we visit the home regardless, but especially for full service, we need to make sure your home is safe for us to be in. Kind of when we say, well, what wouldn't be safe? When they say, well, you know, if the stairs are falling apart, you're a hoarder and it's a situation, you've got animals that you do not want to put on leash while the volunteer is present, those kinds of things. To be honest, we've never come across a home that fell into that category, but we do visit the home to make sure it's a place that would be safe for our volunteers.
Are you still doing the home visits during the COVID business?
We've been doing patio visits and kind of peek in the windows.
Okay.
But we're also not doing in-home services. Nobody's going in anybody's house. And then we also look at 2 kind of medical things. One, in order to be eligible for transportation, you have to get in and out of the car unassisted. You can have a walker, and I many times have taken someone, they get in the car and I put the walker in my trunk, but the person cannot lean on me. They have to be able to get in and out of the car by themselves. We had one member for whom that was not possible, and they still wanted to join, so they joined with the understanding they would not have transportation service. And then the other one is cognitive impairment. We need the people to kind of remember why the person is coming to help. You know, there's some parameters there that are important to us because otherwise it's too hard. So other than that, it's just the person's choice how much service they want.
So there's no age?
No.
Minimum age? Okay. All right. Thank you.
No, I mean, I suppose real young people, I mean, why would they sign up anyway? You know, well, and when we started, we wanted to, we didn't want, we opened it up thinking we would have a number of people who need help to live at home because they might have some sort of physical disability. And we do have one person that might fall into that category, but in general, it's really just seniors.
Janet, I have a quick question. First of all, thank you. This is great information. What's your criteria for selecting a volunteer? Like, how do you choose that this person can be a volunteer?
Well, first they have to want to.
Yeah, yeah.
And then they're interviewed, and then they go through an orientation training, and then they're matched with the kinds of things that our volunteer coordinator and volunteer committee feel would be the most appropriate.
Okay.
To my knowledge, we've never turned anyone away. If people want to help, we'll find a place. And
No,
there's
I'm just thinking about, because how safe is it to just let someone? So there's probably some checking up.
oh yeah, they have, I can't remember what it's called, volunteer. Do you remember, Suzanne? There's some,
No.
yeah, there's some kind of check.
No,
background
but
check.
that they're checked completely, all the way through
Verified
the
volunteer.
FBI
Yeah.
health, fingerprint,
You're
the whole
vetted.
deal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what my question was.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay, that's
verified
great.
volunteer, I think it's called. Yeah, and
Verify
everybody
volunteer.
does that, right?
Okay.
Verify volunteer.
Verify volunteer. Okay.
And people are very specific about what they want to do. That's why we have 80 volunteers. Some do only technology. That's our younger ones.
Uh-huh.
They will go, and they're really called a lot. They're not doing anything now other than phone consult, but they're very, very helpful. But that's all they do. They're not doing any gardening. I do home, I drive, I'm not a gardener. I clean houses. I find it, it's just fun. And usually when you're doing that sort of thing, you're doing it with the member. So it's just a good time to have a conversation and become good friends.
Hi, Janet. It's such a wonderful program, and thank you for the great presentation. I wonder, how many members do you have currently in each area? Do you have a rough number?
Well, yes, we have 102, perhaps 100. It's kind of fluid because we have 2 that are in the process of signing up. That would make it 102 if they, whether we should count them or not, or it's 102 members. And that's been pretty steady. We were hoping to end 2020 with 110. I don't think that's going to happen given the situation, because it's just too hard to do anything. So we don't want to grow too fast, because you need to keep your ratio of volunteers and members healthy.
Sure.
Or otherwise you can't provide the services. And if you can't do that, then your whole framework falls apart. But we've been good at, we've been successful in growing at a steady, healthy pace.
Okay. And what's your way of letting the community know about your services?
We talk about it all the time. And back before this all happened, we had a monthly information meeting at Elsie Stir.
Okay.
I bet you're all missing Elsie Stir, just like we were. They were our best partners. And then we have ads in the newspaper. We have brochures that we hand out. But probably the most effective thing at this point is word of mouth. Neighbors telling neighbors, or we have an event that people hear about. And when we have our coffees and dine around, people will see this group having a great time and come up and ask, where are you guys from? And, but it's been a struggle, because if it's not word of mouth or explanation, people just assume it's a retirement village, like the Hearthstone or something like that. So
yeah.
I have a question for you, Janet. I know our committee over the years has periodically partnered with Viva Village to much success. You guys have always been amazing to work with. Something that caught my ear, along with something that we had been told years and years ago, I think at one of the first times you guys came to present to us, was that there was a story about an individual who worked at Intel that showed up to do computer service because Intel will honor volunteer work of their employees. I wonder, with the membership that people get, you had mentioned that a portion of it can be tax deductible. I know companies like Intel, they do donation matching. And so I was wondering, would it make sense at all for employee at a company like Nike or Intel to buy a membership for a family member, so that not only does the family member get Viva Village services, but Viva Village gets additional donations. Have you come across anything like that, or do you think it'd be possible?
I don't know about them buying a membership, but we do have the volunteer hours. 2 of our volunteers are retired from Intel, and for up to a certain amount, if they work, let's say 10 hours a week, 40 hours a month, Intel pays us something for that time. They have to verify it and hand in their hours to Intel. And then that comes, it's shared metro-wide. To begin with, we were the only village that had Intel retired people pensioned. So we were getting the entire amount. Now we're sharing it with some other villages. So we have that, and it's not insignificant. We're very, very grateful for that funding from, I don't know that Nike has it. If they do have that same kind of thing, we don't have any Nike people anyway. We're not getting any money from Nike, but we do get it from Intel. And I don't know about their buying a membership. That'd be great if they wanted to, because we do provide membership assistance to people who can't afford the full fee.
Well, and I know I had thought about buying a membership for my dad as his birthday or Christmas gift.
Great.
He mistakenly does not feel like he is old enough to need these services at this point. But I was thinking that if I had bought it for him, and I work for a company that does donation matching, if you guys would see an additional bump. Does that make sense?
I don't think so. I don't think the membership. No, Suzanne.
We're not set up like that. I mean, we haven't done. We don't see any additional thing if they buy a membership for their, and they work for Intel or something. We don't.
Gotcha. Okay.
Would be a donation for Intel to do that for somebody, or like
That'd be great.
Yeah. Go for it. I think a lot of times men think they don't need it, and maybe they don't, but that doesn't mean they wouldn't enjoy it. And sometimes people, that's why we found that the services can sometimes be provided by family members, neighbors, and if you have enough financial resource, you can hire it done, and you have a handyman and a cleaning woman. So you don't really need the services, but the person-to-person connection, that is priceless. And we have men's coffees, we have history group, we have field trips to different places, all kinds of things that men participate in. And sometimes I think men are even more lonesome than women. So they may not need anyone to plant their roses, but good conversation is worth a lot.
Janet, this is so interesting. I have another question. Just to clarify about the village movement, this is a geographic-based footprint, isn't it? So if I was, let's say if I was to join, it'd be like, okay, well, you live in this street, this neighborhood, this is your physical footprint, you belong to that village. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay,
and
thank you.
Beaverton, which is us, our boundaries are Beaverton, we go into Aloha up to 185th. And then we go on Shoals Ferry, not into Tigard. And it's kind of wishy-washy Garden Home, because a lot of people who live in Garden Home think of themselves as being part of Beaverton. And so if they want to join the Beaverton group because that's where their friends are and they go to Elsie Stir all the time, they can join even though technically they're out of bounds. And we're strict about that primarily because of the volunteers. If you want to be an associate member, we might be a little more flexible, but if you're going to be driving, you don't want to drive a half an hour to get to the house where you're going to give someone a ride. It just works better if it's close to home.
Yeah. So Janet, I have 2 questions. One, are you looking for book donations for your bookmobile?
We are.
Okay. And second, I have a friend who lives in the hills of Southwest Portland, and she's looking for volunteer work. do you take volunteers from all over, or are you really specifically looking for volunteers from the Beaverton area?
Well, we'll take volunteers from anywhere because we're not going to be going to your home. But
Okay.
usually volunteers prefer to volunteer in the village that is their neighborhood.
Gotcha. Okay.
Because then as they make relationships, would be with their neighbors. And when they did get to the point where they wanted to be a member, they would already be familiar. But we'll take volunteers from anywhere because we're not going to be going to your home. So.
Gotcha.
Sorry, Janet, one more question. Is it fair to say then that recruitment of new members is not a top priority given there's only so many members you can support with your volunteers and the COVID-19 situation? Is that a fair statement, or is that not fair? You mean you'd still like to bring in a lot more people?
Oh yeah,
you said you had 102. How many more do you think you could support comfortably?
As long as we continue to get new volunteers, we're looking at when we get to 150, we'll take notice. But since we've divided our villages into our zip code groups, that is a structure that can accommodate a lot more members because we've got more structure there to provide the support. So yeah, I mean, certainly our membership chair would never agree to saying it's not a priority, but we're not desperate.
I just think that, I'm just going to say my gut reaction that your presentation, if we could get you in front of people, I think you'd bring in more people because this is a very compelling story to me. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you.
I'm very impressed, and I think they can get you talking to folks. I think you'd bring in more people, definitely.
Well, we try, and we were doing much better before COVID. I mean, this is. Who knew? I mean, this is just.
But maybe now is the time that you guys are needed most because people.
Well, we are and we aren't because, well, we're redefining ourselves a bit. But we were so vital in terms of face-to-face community building and friendships and going into people's homes and providing all kinds of services. And so I guess we would have considered the real strengths of the village was stopped, full stop on March 16th, which was, it closed the office. And what we're doing now is kind of recreating ourselves to meet the current need. I do think when this is over, people will value more staying in their own homes because we all know what the alternative has just been one horror story after another about being locked in your little apartments in these facilities. So I do think once this is over, there will be increased interest. I could be wrong about that, but my sense is people will want to stay in their own.
I'm working with the American Industrial Hygiene Association on the COVID-19 ad hoc committee, and our feeling is this won't be over until there is a vaccine available and people are vaccinated. So it's going to be somewhere beyond 2021, the new year.
Yeah, we think so too. We've given up planning for it being over. We're planning for it going on. This is the new us.
Yeah, I think you're being very wise in planning that far ahead. I want to give a plug for the Age Cafe that happens every other Friday, and Viva Village, along with Washington County and the library, are doing a fabulous job offering an opportunity to gather and chat and talk about meaningful things. And it's so supportive. So thank you, Viva Village. It is, I love going. It's just been fabulous. So Janet, I want to thank you for a wonderful presentation and spending time with us.
Oh, you're welcome. We like getting the story out. No,
Wow.
Suzanne. Yeah.
I learned so much, and I really appreciate your being here with us today.
Well, thank you. You're most welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Wow, my cup feels really full. So we're now going to move into a presentation on our subcommittee on the resource panel. So I'm going to ask either Sunita or Sophie to share what we've done so far. I'm putting you both on the spot.
Well,
Well, her
Sophie,
both
if
of
you
you.
want to go, that's fine. We met, we haven't, actually we decided that we might do a series of talks, and we haven't decided, like finalized it. We wanted to share it with everyone in the group. And the 3 topics that we were thinking of starting with was, and Sophie, you can join in because I'm talking from my memory, health, I think connection, connection, and one more.
Begins with an S. Safety.
Safety, yes. So we were thinking of having people from different areas to come and give a talk, maybe like 30 minutes or so. And it could be something where people can ask questions. We would have a moderator to take in questions and ask the speaker. And we wanted to hear from everyone in the group what they thought would be good for this. And Martha and Sophie, please join in and add more about what we talked about. It was, I think, a very good meeting and a very good idea. I think under the given circumstances, with the backdrop of COVID, we can't go out or we can't have it outside. So it's a good idea where we can have something like this. And this was when we heard Kara. I think Kara was such a great speaker, and listening to Janet too, things which we don't hear, to bring it to a big, broader community. It would be helpful for the group that we are trying to focus.
Absolutely.
Sunita, my phone was ringing and I missed the part. What were the topics that I'm trying to take notes here. What were the topics that you were addressing? I got safety, but was there something else that you were talking about?
Safety, health, and connection.
So safety, health, and social connection?
Yeah. Well, connection, sort of a broader term.
Okay.
Yeah.
And connection, and just connections. Okay, thank you.
Sophie, anything else to add?
I'm not sure if we made this clear, but it will be a webinar session. So each session will cover one of those topics. Again, I'm not sure if that was what was just said.
No, that's fine. Just, I mean,
trying to find the notes.
Yeah.
So basically, it's going to be more of an educational and have some presenters that cover the topics. And then maybe like 2 presenters per topic, maybe 3, maybe break up into groups and talk about each, to kind of, the main goal is to support our community on these topics. We can break it down into ideas as simple as helping someone set up their Zoom account for the connection. It could be as simple as connecting them with Viva Village as connection. So connection's kind of broad. Then with health, we talked about COVID and how we can keep our seniors strong and, all ages strong. So maybe doing like a how to put your mask on, how to take off your mask, what masks are safe, which ones aren't, that kind of health. And then, we can kind of dive other directions for health, have a couple different thoughts. And then we talked about safety. We really all agree that we really like the, the series that we did based on fraud. And especially during COVID, people are home and phones and robocalls are happening. They're real. I just got 2 yesterday. I got 1 this morning. So, I even got a call and someone was asking me to verify my address just yesterday. She had my name and she wanted me to verify. She had my first name. That's all she had. And my cell phone, which is very public information, but because I give it out on my business card, but she wanted me to verify my address. And so I'm thinking that happens a lot. It's a side topic, but.
So how did you handle that, Sophie?
I asked her how she got my information and she kind of fumbled and it sounded like she was in a call center. And I said, I appreciate your call, but please take me off of your list. Please put me on your do not call list. Whether or not she does, that's up to her, but, and then I hung up.
Good. Those are sweet, short and sweet, and bing, you're done, right?
Done. Yeah. So, you know, just navigating that part of the safety. And, you know, we could even talk about public safety, like, you know, going in and out of stores with COVID and stuff like that. I don't know. So there's lots of variations that we can take these 3 topics, but that's why we decided to come up with some topics to make it more clear and concise for our direction. But also, since we're not doing in-person events, this was sort of our virtual attempt to stay connected.
Right.
And,
Okay,
And
just so you know, I'm on the American Industrial Hygiene Association's COVID-19 ad hoc committee, and we just finished a meeting at noon today on various things, and we've got a lot of resources that could be used in this health discussion to talk about how to. Right now, I'm working with my church, St. Bartholomew's Episcopal Church here in Beaverton, on how to reopen successfully, for instance. And the mask issue is a big one. Masks versus respirators, what's the difference between the two, that sort of thing. So I could be a resource in that. I've got about 30 years in the health and safety profession.
Thank you, John. That would be great.
would it be helpful if I shared Martha's notes from our meeting in the chat so y'all can review what we discussed?
Perfect.
Okay, I'll do that right now.
Okay.
You know what, also, could you also just email them? Can you email them to me and then I can put them in the minutes?
I will do that.
That would be awesome.
To you.
Okay.
And also, because they're webinars, we would tape them and then put them on our website.
Right.
So if you couldn't attend the presentation, you can actually go to the BCOA website and watch the presentation. So we would make it very available across at all times.
And I had another idea about this presentation, this whole presentation thing. You know, do you remember about a year ago? It seems kind of, I was trying to look it up. It was a year ago or so, and we had a panel. It was not well attended, but the presentation was excellent about anxiety and depression and all of that. Do you remember that? Does anyone remember that? And
yeah, it was at the Elks Lodge.
Yes.
I have all the contact information.
Yes.
So I think Lou does as well. And in fact, I was waiting to get a chance to pipe in. I know that there was concern during our last meeting about having old presenters or people that maybe we've had at events before. But back in 2017, our committee held a really large event that was actually pretty well attended. Lou, you were there. Suzanne, you were there too, right? At Beaverton Christian Church?
Yeah.
I remember that. Yep.
Yeah, Hilary too.
Well, yeah, that was great.
The whole focus of it was housing, transportation, and social community opportunities. Mm-hmm. And so I can go in and try to find our vendor list, because some of them were, you know, making the home more safe, small things to help put yourself out there more. There were some really unique vendors there, professional organizers that can come in and support you trying to declutter, which obviously this is all remote learning, but if the three of you are interested, I'd be happy to send you our info from that.
Would love
there
to
was an equipment guy too.
Yeah,
Remember
that was the most, oh yeah.
And they loved that.
He came from Beaverton Pharmacy. I remember the guy with the red walker zooming around.
Right, I do too.
It was amazing.
Sounds like it was on his little motorcycle.
Nope, it was just
I was so pleased he'd gotten a whole new walker.
A regular, you know, push on wheels kind of thing, but he wasn't used to that.
So then what I'm hearing is that we might even revisit some of our past presenters that, you know, revisit and see if we can refit a different kind of presentation or something for future.
Yeah, and if we already have contacts, let's see if we can use them. And
Mhm.
say that we can collaborate with Viva Village, so we're not reinventing the wheel, we're not duplicating services, but we can provide things that maybe not be that you can't do everything. So
Right.
how do we share provide a banquet table rather than the menu or the entree kind of thing.
I don't know if you're aware, but Suzanne perhaps has shared with you that in the fall, we for the last couple of years have had Aging with Grace, which is a weekend, two, 3 weekend seminars. And we're planning to do it this year on Zoom for 4 consecutive Saturdays. And the topic is exactly what you're talking about. Well, sort of transitions, transportation, housing, that sort of thing. So, and that's going to be in kind of towards the end of October and November.
So
there's vendors. There will be vendors. They're really doing a good job looking at everything and trying to put together, so there will be, specially interviewed vendors and et cetera, with really good information that people just don't it's always been my thing is people don't know what's available.
Well,
and people don't know what they don't know. That's the other thing. You don't know what to ask if you don't know.
Exactly. Yeah.
Sometimes we also need to hear something more than once.
Yeah.
Soak in and go, oh, that's what that is.
Right.
Yeah.
Janet, with the Viva Village, you said, is it 4 Saturdays in a row?
Yes, that's what they're planning right now. I think the 4th Saturday is still not entirely confirmed, but 3 for sure.
3 for sure.
Is that open for everyone or just the Viva Village?
It's open to the public, yes.
It's open to the public.
I think it's, isn't it October, Janet?
Yeah, starts towards the end of October
Right.
and then into November.
Right.
And
okay, so it's
they're
October.
working hard.
Okay.
They're going to do like Life Alert and all that kind of equipment, everything related to transitions, but still staying in your own home.
Wonderful.
Do you guys tape it and upload it on your website or anything? Or is this just like you attended while it's going on?
I don't know now that it's going to be on Zoom. Taping might be a little easier, but when we were doing it live, we taped it the first year, but it was really expensive. And we decided that we weren't going to do that again. So we didn't do that last year. I don't know with Zoom, it's easier to tape things. So maybe, I don't know.
So
why
that's a
not? They
question.
could then come in anytime they wanted to. That's a good idea though, Janet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you on that committee, Suzanne?
Yes, but I haven't been there. I've had numerous issues at home, and my sister got COVID, so it's been a long year for us.
Yeah, well, I think it's a good suggestion. I'll ask them if they've considered it.
Yeah.
'Cause I think it is easier to tape off Zoom, and it's
Yes.
quite easy actually.
And we should talk when we have our talk so that we don't do the same kind of things. We can
Right.
try to keep it a little
That's
bit.
why I mentioned that
Yeah.
we're planning
Yeah.
that for just
So
coming up this
we
fall.
need to collaborate.
Collaborate. Yeah.
Okay. So any other comments, additions to our subcommittee and panel of sharing resources out in the community from the Beaverton Committee on Aging?
Yeah, I have a thought, and it just, again, this is just draw balloon time. We're here, so.
We're all ears, Lou.
Okay, so, and I had the same assumption too, that we would convey this information via webinar, Zoom, and we're kind of locked into that. Since our last meeting, I attended a phone meeting that Susan Bonamici put on to give a kind of a town hall meeting via phone. And it was surprisingly effective. I mean, they did a poll, they had a system where you could ask questions, and it seemed very inclusive way to bring in people who may not have access to the internet. I don't know how you set that up. I don't know if this would work for the subjects we're doing. It was just the thought that not every person has internet access, and this might be a nice way to, and we don't have to do every meeting the same way. Maybe we could try it once on one topic. Just a food for thought, putting it out there.
Okay. So Lou, I just want to mention that you can call into this without internet access.
Oh, well then we could do both.
So we would be able to do it where if you do have internet access, you could watch if you don't, you can still call and listen.
And maybe if we, the way we communicate or advertise this, that we would be emphasis also on that you could call in if you don't have internet access. So
Right.
yeah, then
Good
that
point.
works. Great.
Thank you, Lou, for broadening our access to people and for people to be able to participate. That's really important. Any other ideas? Yes, John?
Well, the safety aspect has a huge, it's a huge area
Yeah.
that covers a huge part more than fraud. For older individuals, it has to do with how to set your home up so that you don't fall. It has to do with how to get out and get in various places. You know, how to keep yourself from getting things like osteoporosis and things like that by exercise. There's just a large amount of information there.
So
Did I
John, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. There's a delay on the Zoom. I will say that in order to help focus that, I think all of these topics, the safety, health, and connection were all those under COVID. So like specifically related to connection during time of, you know, current times, as well as like what are the current scams that may be going on. So trying to make that, so that was the narrow scope, was like, because you're right, it's such a huge thing that we could, you know, do anything, but to narrow the focus to more specifically things that are happening right now.
Yeah.
And then have two speakers. I'm not sure if I heard anybody say that we were, at least the brainstorm was to have 2 speakers per with a Q&A for each format wise. And that was just a proposal. So I think that was the idea, was like, this is what the brainstorm came up with, but then wanted to run it by everybody in the committee to see like, does that sound good format wise? And it's great to hear all of the different ideas for possible speakers, because it sounds like generally you're on board.
Yeah.
And it would be 2 speakers.
I got one other thing is, I'm sorry.
Go on.
Okay, this is a little bit off topic, but we have the Zoom group chat, and you can highlight, you can go down and click the chat button down below, and then you can highlight that text and copy it and then put it into a document on your computer. Just paste it into a Word document or a different Word program, and you have it on your own computer. You don't have to just leave it there.
So we'd be happy to share. We can also just, I think Hilary's going to include the subcommittee notes into the minutes. Just as a reminder, we can certainly, it's great, we use the chat, can copy it. Just that's the same as having notes from a meeting. So then just remember that that's the public meeting, you know. So yeah, thanks, John.
Thank you. So I'm going to email Hilary the notes that we took from our last meeting, and then our subcommittee will figure out what our next step is. So thank you everybody for your ideas, and our focus is these would be resources under COVID-19, because we're in this for the long haul, right? Okay, thank you everybody. So we're now on to hearing from our Councilor, Marc. Looking forward to hearing what you have to share with us today.
Well, I wish I had a whole lot of stuff to share with you, but things are a little bit quiet right now. For one reason or another, we often find ourselves in the month of August having fewer council meetings, some years 2, some years 1. This is one of the 1 years, which means we had a meeting last week and none this week, next week, or the week after. So we'll be back at it in September. Probably a couple of the larger things that are going on right now. We have initiated a set of community conversations that are going to be taking place with respect to the role of policing in our lives in Beaverton and in the community around us. And rather than have those discussions take place through Microsoft Teams meeting during council time, when our time is sort of hemmed in by other business that we have to attend to, we've hired a consultant who is going to go out and have conversations with members, groups in the community sort of outside of the context of our structured council meetings in order to allow for a fuller and wider ranging dialogue. And then that consultant is going to gather the information together, bring it back to us, and then we'll start a series of conversations at council about what we want to do in response to what we've learned. So we did have a couple discussions at council about two aspects of policing. One is some insight into how the SRO program, the Student Resource Officer program, works in the high schools. And the other one was about the recruiting and training policies of the police department. Now, one of the things about those two discussions that makes the hiring of the consultant and the work of the consultant important is that they were sort of the inside view of those things. So it was the SRO program as viewed by the police department itself and as viewed by the school administration. There is a different point of view, for instance, on the SRO program from students, parents, and some of the teachers themselves. And those are some of the perspectives that we want to gather as well. So we look at an issue like the SRO program from all sides. Same thing with police training and police recruiting policies. We want to make sure that well, to be perfectly frank about it, we've never really spent a lot of time at City Council in my time, in almost 12 years now, going over what our policies are for the operation of our police department. We've just been counting on the fact that they're well run and that they all perform in an admirable and socially acceptable fashion. I think that's true, except that every now and then we hear a story or two from somebody, and the mechanisms that we have in place to dig a little bit deeper into those stories are kind of fragile. So I think we want to figure out what's a better way for us to learn about the perception of policing in Beaverton from the point of view of people who are not comfortable talking back to a police officer or calling the chief and saying, hey, I had this thing happen. We're looking for that perspective as well. So asking a lot of questions at this point. We're not trying to develop answers yet. I know there are some people out there that would like us to have answers today. They would like us to have had answers 2 months ago, but that's not the way we work. We pay careful attention to a lot of different inputs and think about it carefully. And I would imagine that if there are changes to be made, we'll be talking about them over the next couple, 3 months. The other major thing going on is preparing for January. And as we've talked about before, January, there's going to be a change in certain aspects of the structure of our government, such as we'll have a new chief executive. And so we have actually posted that position now. We are looking to hire an interim chief executive for the city, with the job title officially city manager. And that interim will serve starting in January and until such time as we decide who is going to be the regular full-time city manager for the city, which will be another recruitment, for which the interim will of course be invited to apply if they want to. But some people just like interim jobs and then want to move off into whatever else they were thinking of doing. But some people take an interim job hoping that they can win the long-term job as well. Since we haven't even had any applicants submit to the city council yet, well, at least we haven't seen them, I have no idea who is currently thinking about applying for the interim city manager position, unless Carley's thinking about it and hasn't told us yet.
I think I have that information. So that's good. So I think this is one of the problems with being in the remote world, right?
Yeah.
No, I don't have any insider.
No. There's, to the best of my knowledge, the posting just went out last week. It's very possible somebody had an application ready and threw it in there already, but HR is actually driving this process. City council hires are a little bit challenging because we have to do our deliberating on candidates either in a public meeting or in an executive session at a council meeting. And any evaluation of candidates has to be driven by HR using a sort of standardized scoring mechanism based on interviews. And we can't have all 5 counselors in the room asking questions of the candidate unless we do it at a public meeting. And that's typically not done when you have people applying for a position like this, because sometimes people apply with an expectation of confidentiality. because they might be thinking about leaving a job that they currently have, where the people would be very upset if they found out that this person was thinking about leaving it. So, you know, that's something we have to be respectful of. We just went through that, for instance, in hiring a new judge, associate judge for a municipal court. I think I mentioned the last time we got together that we were looking to hire 2. We hired 1. We'll probably be reposting for the second associate judge position, but we do now have a presiding judge and an associate judge, and we'll have a second associate judge if we find a suitable candidate sometime. But that process went along pretty much the same way that the hiring of the city manager will do. But not surprisingly, our criteria for a city manager are quite different than the criteria for a judge. They're different job responsibilities and things. But it's also a hire that I think probably is one of the most significant that, that this council will make. The hiring of the full-time city manager next year will be one of the most significant decisions of next year's city council. And as you probably all know, next year's city council will not be the same as this year's. We will have at least 1 new member because we opened up a brand new position, a new city council position 6. We had 1 of our current councilors decide not to run for re-election in May. There's been a rumor that she might try to run for this position, but I know there's already 2 other candidates who have filed for the new position. So at the very least, we will have Allison Tivnon on the council. She won an election in May for the seat currently held by Councilor Arnold. So we're guaranteed at least 1 new face. We could have 2 new faces. And there's even a possibility of having 3 new faces. And that possibility would occur should Lacey Beatty win the mayor's race, in which case 2 years of her council term would be available to be filled by a new face. And the council would declare a special election sometime in the first half of next year to fill that. So we don't really know exactly what next year's council is going to look like. We'll find out more about it in November and then make decisions based on that. So it's going to be an interesting next few months. A little bit quiet on the council front because development activity has slowed down a bit. You know, the effects on the economy of the COVID situation are starting to be noticed. There's a lot of house building going on, a lot of buildings being constructed, but some of the newer projects that were in the works are not moving very quickly forward. So you'll see a lot of development going on, but those are things that were all approved 6 to 12 months ago, and they're just continuing because the people who are building them have reasonable confidence that they're going to be able to sell or lease those properties and recoup the expense of continuing construction. Similarly, the Center for the Arts is moving forward because that's fully funded. The parking garage is fully funded. Those are going to keep moving forward. So there'll still be great, interesting developments in downtown Beaverton, and South Cooper Mountain is still going. The big development over at Murray and Tualatin Valley Highway is still going. That's in fact, they're going fast. I'm really surprised by that. And that's going to be residential and retail. It's going to be a very interesting development. So we'll see new things coming up. They'll be a little bit slow probably the first half of next year.
Yeah. I have a quick question just for the minutes, Mark. Is that a national search for the city manager? I'm thinking it's a national search, correct?
Intergalactic.
Intergalactic. All right. That's awesome.
Star Wars is here.
Yeah, you betcha. Well, yes, we have posted it to a number of national recruiting opportunities, and there's a good reason for that. Those who pay attention to these kinds of things might know that the county government just hired a new county chief administrative officer to replace the interim who replaced the 10-year CAO Bob Davis. The interim, Stephen Rhodes, just came in to do the job temporarily. He thought he was going to be there a few months, and then whammo, COVID happened, and the job search for a new chief administrative officer slowed down. But the county finalized that, and the new CAO, I think, starts officially next week, either this week or next week. And she was a deputy city manager in Boulder, Colorado.
Oh, wow.
So running a national search sometimes yields great results. It's an interesting story there too, because it turns out that this person who, from all I've heard, is a really excellent hire for Washington County and for us because of that, had also previously applied for the position of city manager in Hillsborough when Hillsborough was looking for a city manager. They ended up hiring internally. They had somebody who was a deputy city manager, and they hired the deputy to be their city manager. So this person went back to her previous job, or didn't leave her previous job, but then when the opportunity to apply again out here in Washington County came, I guess she really wanted to move to Oregon.
I guess so.
and from what I hear, she and her family have bought a house in Beaverton. So there, we get that point anyway.
Thank you, Mark.
Yeah, you bet.
I really just want to give a plug for the First Street down in downtown Beaverton.
The restaurant row, yeah.
Dining, it's awesome. Honoring 6 feet, and you can eat and drink and have a great time. It's wonderful. Thank you.
If you can afford to support our local restaurants, please do.
Yes.
Hey, this is John. A couple of things. First of all, I'm part of a new group at our church that's going to be discussing racism. And so I kind of looked up what the city of Beaverton has been doing, and I found the diversity, equity, and inclusion plan that was updated last year. And Mark, I'd like to give you kudos and a pat on the back and the whole city council and city for doing all that you can to keep race relations within human terms. In other words, to promote the Rainbow Coalition that we have here in Beaverton, because we look at Portland and we look at Beaverton and we see a vast difference.
Well, I don't want to give us too much credit. You know, the diversity, equity, inclusion plan is a really great plan. There's a lot of work to not just implement it, but to continue implementing the important things that have to be done on an ongoing basis. And I don't think we have reached all those milestones yet. And so I don't want to claim that we're done. We have a long way to go.
Never done, but at least, you know, it's showing some results, I think.
Good.
Awesome. Okay, thank you, Mark. And Carley, update from the city.
Yeah, okay, I've got this here. I had it up on my computer. 1 second here, pull this up. Okay, so let's see here. Couple of updates that the city building closures remain in effect. And let's see here.
It got extended.
It did to the November 15th is the latest date.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean that there's going to be some limited capacity for passports in the municipal court. So there's some exceptions to that. I'm sorry if you're hearing, let me turn this off. Apologize, probably getting too much background noise. So by appointment, some services are available and most things are available virtually. And that's available on the city's website. There's also a contactless curbside pickup service for the library that is available, that you can pick up books. And let's see here, there's no meeting rooms available at this point for, you know, the community spaces of the buildings. Let's see, there are multiple virtual events that are happening, and that's also on the city website. So this will all be in the minutes so you can see the links to the websites. The annual celebration parade is happening in a virtual format. The theme is Beaverton Together. And let's see here. The Beaverton Night Market is also happening virtually. And so there's a link there where you can read more about how that's starting August 14th and August 15th. So that's going to be an interactive live stream cultural sharing experience. That's coming up right away. Yep. And then the Flicks by the Fountain will be a virtual movie night, trivia night, with a live stream in August. So there's going to be trivia and movies and prizes. So we'll, like I said, I'll put this in the minutes. We'll get that out to you all right now so you can get all of those details from the city. So events have moved to different kinds of formats. People have been really creative about trying to like still have some things that are exciting and happening, even though to adapt to a new way of doing it.
Carley, I can attest to the library curbside pickup. It works great. It's just efficient, wonderful. So I'm using it. I've picked up a bunch of stuff, so it's working great.
Yes, and as you all know, you all are pretty involved in some of the city things. You may know more than I do at this particular moment about some of the things that are happening in terms of events, as I'm just coming back to being fully at work.
Do you know about drop-offs for the books for the library? Like if you have a book for the library, can you drop it off too?
Yes,
yeah.
And so click on the link that I'm gonna add, and then it'll tell you how to do that.
It's all no contact. Great.
Contact.
Works wonderful.
Yeah, and but you have to make an appointment online to go. You can't just show up. You have to make an appointment.
So the last thing I wanted to ask you all about, and I know it's 4:30 right now, is I really just wanted to say thank you to your ideas related to our intern, to the intern that I'm gonna bring on. She has a particular interest in working with older adults, and she's doing her social work. Sorry.
That's all right.
We need an update on that.
She was very content until I needed to talk, and then of course this is when she's not so content.
We need her in the picture.
There you go.
Very cute.
She decided if I was going to talk, she was not going to stay happy. So in any case, the intern, she's going to do her master's in social work, and she's doing this as part of her first year internship. And so because she had that connection and really wanted to do something, I thought we got to connect her with the work that you all are doing, helping to support some of these things. So really, I want to be doing something that we are all as a committee working on. So some sort of project related to that. There were a lot of great ideas that you all generated, but I want to keep it somewhat within the scope of things that we've already identified that the BCOA is interested in, as opposed to just a side project. So because I need to be able to manage it. So that's really what it comes down to, is that I will be the supervisor and I have to be able to keep it within the scope of what I can supervise. So if she was working on something too far from my, scope, then that's a little hard for me. So anyways, I don't know that we have time to dive into it anymore, but she'll start at the end of August. And I'll start working with her. But if you have ideas, if you're thinking about this in the meantime, reach out to me individually. And that'd be great. And then she's going to be attending the meetings so that you'll get to know her and see what she can do. I might also have her tasked with calling every single one of you individually just to touch base and kind of hear from you.
Carly, what's her name?
Megan.
Megan.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I've got. That's what I've got, Martha.
Thank you, Carly. And I agreed, having her work within our boundaries so that we're not duplicating anything and we're getting support and help. I'm with you. So thank you all. Any other good for the matter for the good, or whatever they say?
Martha, can you just make sure, I am not sure I'm going to get those minutes that come from the resource committee, but I will try to attend now that I'm back. And
I emailed them to you previously, but
I haven't had a chance to look.
Okay, I will re-email them to you.
That would be wonderful. Yeah, and then the next meeting and all that stuff, I'll be there.
Okay.
I hope.
So our next meeting is Tuesday, September 8th.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So thank you all for being here. And do I hear a motion to close the meeting?
I move the meeting be closed.
And a second?
A second.
Thank you so much. And have a great rest of your day. And thank you for your great ideas. And take care. Be safe.
Thank you.
Stay cool.
You too.